it was an exotic stand at Chelsea, and really, who on earth would decide to try and do a display of exotic plants in May at the opposite end of the season of when they're really at their best? But that is the challenge of Chelsea, isn't it? Is to do something that other people aren't doing, maybe to do something that fills people with envy. That's it. It's a little bit of showboating. It's an odd thing, Chelsea, the Chelsea bubble. It's real, but it's not real. And after a whirlwind week, you often come back and you wonder if it was just a dream.
The Chelsea stand, obviously absolutely packed out with all of these wonderful plants. How difficult is it to keep them happy in that pavilion? You know, there's I don't know how far you have to go to get water. What's that kind of maintenance procedure?
So we mist every day and just spot water. But actually, the humidity in the tent, in the marquee, is so high that the plants, my plants, and I know that's not true for all of the nurseries, are very happy in that environment. And actually, when you take the display apart at the end of the week, you don't realize how much they have stretched and grown, partly because of the low light levels, but partly because they've had a week of feeling really happy and comfortable in their environment. We always try and finish our display as early as possible so that they have at least a day, if not 2 days, to sit in the display and just settle after a traumatic trip up the motorway for the plants and the gardeners. And it's a funny thing, going to Chelsea. In recent years, I've heard lots of gardeners, nurserymen, people sort of saying, "Oh, I'm not going to do Chelsea. It's too, it's not environmentally friendly, and that's the reason I'm not going to do it." And I thought about this really hard, and I commented back to a few friends that I'm not sure if this is just a cop out from your perspective.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah, because I think your environmental good practices start a long time before your plants get to Chelsea. Now, I can't speak on behalf of the gardens and the environmental impact of those, but in the pavilion, where we're just bringing wonderfully grown specimen plants in, the carbon footprint is tiny, but the logistical exercise of pulling it off is quite hard work. And what I realized is that most people are quite stoppable. If you tell them no, or you make it difficult for them, they give up and they don't want to try. But actually, I mean, that's great for me because I'm happy to push myself to my limits and beyond to see what I'm capable of. And so what if you don't do quite as well with a medal? You've gone and you've done something that means something to you, and you feel satisfied as a gardener that you've shown people some really special plants. And that's the driving force.
This characteristic of yours is probably very, very good in a self-employed person. I'm sure my bosses would prefer me to be a little more stoppable.
Oh, Lou said for years that I am unemployable. She said, "You're too headstrong. You've got too many of your own opinions, and bosses often don't like that." And I was so lucky that I had such a free reign at Salutation that I think that's why I coped so well there for so long, because they even used to say it was my garden. They used to enjoy it. They used to make the most of it and have parties and barbecues and friends over, but they weren't interested in how it came into being or what was there. As against when I went to Canterbury Cathedral, and I loved my time there. Lots of great people, but they really weren't ready for me.
You people would be, Steve. Yeah. Interesting what you say about Salutation, though, because I went to a little open garden weekend the other day, and there was a manor house where it was all really nice, but all I could think as I walked past, a really gorgeous south-facing wall in a sheltered corner that had nothing growing on it, I could just think, what would the likes of Steve Edney or Ian Roof, these people I know who have so many planty ideas, what would they do with this space? And it's a shame, actually, that more of these sort of slightly half-heartedly gardened, or maybe just, you know, gardened by people who don't have as many ideas or as much enthusiasm for it. It's a shame they can't hand the reins over to people like you so that it can just be full of wonder.
I'm so lucky that they gave me. They were incredibly brave. You know, when you're not an expert in that field, but you're prepared to pay somebody to do something like what we created at Salutation, and also to take, you know, we took a fair bit of stick at Salutation over some of our decisions about how we did things. I remember coming back from Chelsea when we won our first gold medal at Salutation for the seed heads in 2019. And we got a letter from somebody within a week of me being back. So we were kind of on a high. But somebody thought they'd visit the Salutation after seeing us, I guess, on the telly. And they wrote a letter saying, you're obviously more interested in winning gold medals than keeping your garden weed free. And I was really angry, if I'm honest. My response wouldn't have been nearly as polite as the as the owners was. But I said, you have to remember, it wasn't weedy, but what they saw were plants that they considered weeds, cow parsleys billowing out of the corners of the woodland, the meadow. We used to take so much flack for long grass. And we had a rule that we planted 130,000 bulbs into a small 4-acre garden over the period of about 10 years. And so we allowed the garden to become loose and rebellious in the spring, right up until about midsummer. And then we started to rein it all in. And we did what we called the shakedown, which is where lots of tender plants were added. Onyces would come out, wallflowers would come out. Lots of early spring things would be cut back and interplanted. So there was always a little spot when it was a bit rebellious. And I was okay with that. And if they'd have taken just a moment to have a conversation about our gardening style, they'd have understood that. But instead, they felt the need to chastise us because we'd won a gold medal and were feeling happy about it. There's always somebody moaning at you from the sidelines about what you haven't done or why you're doing it that way. But they're on the sidelines for a reason, I reckon.
I agree with you entirely, because, you know, when you have a garden that's open to the public like I do, you frequently get criticisms like that. And I always seem, well, I don't give a damn because it's my garden and I like it the way it is. If you don't like it, don't visit it. And I think the other thing is it's very, very easy for people to be cruel, unnecessarily cruel sometimes, more often than not, unnecessarily cruel in a letter or an email.
Yes, in a way that they wouldn't be if they were having a conversation with you.
Absolutely.
To go back to medals and being on a high after receiving one, what happened with your display at Chelsea this year?
Oh, yeah, we got our first gold medal for the No Name Nursery, which was really, so exciting. Although I must tell you, because I try almost honest to a fault. I'd said to Lou, and I'd always said to people, we don't chase medals, we just satisfy ourselves. And I've even said it today, but a little bit of me wanted that gold medal for us because we'd got it for other people. And now I wanted it just for us. And I said, I'm not going to give up until we get a gold medal, Lou. And Lou came round the corner of the stand, saw the gold medal, and went, thank goodness I haven't got to come back. Because it is hard work at a time of year when you miss a lot of the garden. You miss the garden, you miss being in it. And it occupies a lot of your thoughts at a time when you really should have your attention on your garden as well. Reading Beth Chatto, one of her books, she was saying the same thing about how difficult that is.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about winning your first gold medal is that you actually get a gold medal. So it'll take about 3 months to arrive, but you get a lovely little box and a solid gold medal in it. Well, it wouldn't be solid gold. It is actual gold, but probably plated.
Well, that's something to look forward to. You can go and hang it in your downstairs loo or something, so everyone can see it and they take a comfort break. Because I feel like, you know, we're going to run out of time and there are all of these amazing plants behind you. To revisit the idea of getting to Chelsea, as we all know, when you go mad at a nursery and buy loads of things, some of them are easier to transport than others. What was the hardest plant to get to Chelsea looking good?
Wow. Oh, not for the actual physical drive, but the Persicarias. The adult vine weevils, they're such buggers, and they love cut it. They make these little notch marks in the leaves, and they love a Persicaria leaf. So I would say that was the most difficult plant, because right up to the 11th hour at the last minute, you think that looks perfect. And here we go, a good example. Here we go. Persicaria variegata, virginiana variegata. And I think this is much better than painter's palette as a plant. The variegation is better. There's not a chevron in the leaf, just lovely creamy white splashing all across it. It just seems to have much more depth to its variegation, which I just think is gorgeous. But you close in and look.
Yeah.
Oh, it's
notched by, and so even while the morning we were packing, because I arrived, annoyingly the forecast was for heavy rain the morning that we were going to pack to bring the first load to Chelsea, which was meant to start at 8 o'clock in the morning. So I arrived about 4:30, literally as it was getting light. I'd been staying at the farm. Lou rang me at about 6 o'clock saying, I think we should start early. And I said, I'm already half packed, Lou. It's turn up when you like, love, So I wanted to desperately get the van packed before everything got absolutely poured on. Not that it was too much of a problem, but we would water from the base and not sprinkle above, because we don't want watermarks on the leaves that have to be tidied too much. And where you've got a leaf that's quite hoary and it's fine hairs all over it, you just you can't really clean them off so well. So we tend to water right down at the base of the plant. Once a week it would be foliar fed, and that's the only time it would get water on its leaves, really.
Is there a little purple flower at the foot of that, by the way?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is. This is
Tradescantia.
It's a Tradescantia relative, Tinantia pringlei, and it's it is a Tradescantia flower, and a lovely speckling to the leaf, hardy, and shade loving, and sort of a mound forming, so not very tall, maybe 30 or 40 centimeters. So it creeps around, and it'll even gently self-seed here in East Kent. So I'm sure it would do up on the East Coast with you, Alan, and Thordis in your garden.
Yeah. Why is this not more widely grown? It sounds absolutely perfect.
It's an amazing plant. And, Nick Mesa had it a number of years ago. I couldn't get my hands on one when he first had it. And it came to me very kindly from David Foreman, who's a member of the Herbaceous Plant Committee at the RHS. He asked me if I had it, and I said no. He said, "Oh, well, let me dig you off a piece, and I'll send it your way." Well, ever since then, we've been propagating it. And then, as luck would have it, last spring at the Dixter Plant Fair, David had obviously done very well with it, because he came to find us and basically put an entire trug full of it down in front of us. So we had lots of the plant, enough to use in our Chelsea display last year as a ground cover. And it's a wonderful little herbaceous perennial from Mexico.
And did I spy something like a Cuphea next to it?
Yes. Yeah. This is probably the biggest of all the Cupheas. This is David Verity, the cigar plant. So it sort of looks like someone's burning a cigar.
Yeah, I love Cupheas. That's really big. I always, because I've got to know them from the exotic garden at East Ruston, and basically coveting them online. I haven't actually seen all that many in the wild, and that really is bushy.
Yeah, and this is still the beginning of the season. It's still relatively small. It's about 80 centimeters at the minute, whereas it will come up to about 1.2. So it's the biggest Cuphea that we grow. And so I love some of the others, but I guess they are better as pot subjects or as edging plants. where they can be nice and warm and show off. Otherwise, they can get a bit lost into the background. But this one has got enough presence and size to hold its own. The only other person I know that sells this is Rosie Hardy.
Yeah.
Got to look at the Polyscias. That's this shrub here, which is really grown as a Polyscias sambucifolia, really grown as a house plant or a conservatory plant by most people. But with the winter we had just last year, it didn't even lose its leaves. Stayed evergreen in the tunnel, unheated tunnel. So it's a bit hardier, I think, than people think.
And that name, sambucifolia, is obviously, giving away for those listening to the audio version that it's got this lovely kind of dissected filigree fern-like foliage.
Yeah, much more like the North American sambucus, the racemosa. It's more laciniated and cut leaf rather than our native elderberry. So it's an elegant form, if you like. But of similar ilk. You can almost be forgiven a little bit when you look at it for thinking it is a sambucus of some kind. Yeah, so that's a very lovely thing. And I'm just going to go around to one of my favorite plants, which is a Chlorophytum. So this is Chlorophytum Starlight, Sandersonia. So it's a different species to sort of our traditional spider houseplants. Now, this was a runner-up for Plant of the Year at Chelsea a few years ago, and I fell in love with it. And I love the little white flowers. So you can really sort of see that Chlorophytum flower in it. But it's much more slender and more fountain-shaped as it's growing. Nice variegation. It has a green margin at the edge, and the cream runs all the way up through the middle rather than the other way round. So it looks much brighter, because some of them it's the other way round. You just have a cream margin and then green up the middle. So it's the other way round. But they say hardy to about -8. I would say it defoliates once it hits 0. It just turns into mush, but then it does reappear. And actually, even the sort of more common spider plant, I've been amazed how they have gone through -5 outside in a light, free draining soil. By June, they've suddenly re-emerged out of the ground after me thinking, because they send off so many little babies that I figured it was gone, and we just took some of the youngsters and potted those up. And then it reappeared the following June. Even though we planted above it, we'd even been chopping into it around it. But this one is one of my faves.
Yeah, I think its habit is what makes it really stand out. Like you say, it's got that real upright fountain. So it shoots up and then cascades outwards with those lovely little stars.
Yeah, I think the only thing for me that bugs me a little bit is the plant breeder's rights on it. So you have to buy it with a license. So you have to buy it in. And as a nursery, I like to be able to propagate my own stuff. But I do kind of get it when people spent a lot of time breeding plants, but that's not always the case. So I guess I'm probably a bit outspoken about plant breeders' rights, that I patent on nature. I'd rather avoid it. I don't intend to do that with any of my plants if I introduce any of any worth. Who knows? Astelia, that was next door to it. That was Westland. That was one that people asked about quite a bit. It's just another one of those really useful evergreen ground covers from New Zealand. Puts up with quite a lot of shade, but doesn't mind being out in the full sun as well. I know that Alan has Astelias.
Yeah, last time we were talking about chathamica.
Yeah, a silver leaf one, isn't it? I don't grow that one actually.
I was very lucky to be gifted a whole load of plants from a lady that bought a house where the old gentleman had died, and he was quite a plant person, and she'd been to the garden here, and she said, well, do you want to come and get some of the things from this garden? Because I really don't want them. I don't know about them, and I don't understand them, and they're going to be dumped otherwise. So, I mean, we went and we got masses of Astelia chathamica, and it is a wonderful plant. Bright silver, spiky leaves that love shade. I mean, what's not to like with that?
Yeah, that has got to be in my life soon. It really has. It's hard to find them for sale, and when you do find them, they are expensive, but it'll be worth paying for, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm going to make you green with envy now, Steve. I went to see a friend of mine who's a cabinet maker, and next door to him is a lady who gardens, and she has a plant stall outside, and she had 2 Astelia chathamica's on her stand. Dare I tell you they were £2 each?
No.
I bet she didn't have them on there for long.
You're right.
They came home with you, didn't they, Alan?
They did. They did.
Well, there we go. You can FLOMO over that, and you can, FLOMO particularly over the price. FLOMO, this brings us very neatly round to that sort of feeling you have, that fear of missing out about a flower or a plant. Goodness me, I have a lot of it now, particularly for fatsias. I definitely need some of those fatsias that you've got growing in my garden. I mean, I know it's only small, but it's also north facing, and I've got much fatsia potential. I actually came to this with a plant. We talked about it on the radio recently because Joe Sharman has planted up around my village sign. And so previously it was some really quite depressing bedding, but now Monk Silver Nursery has just completely revamped it, and it's only just in. It's only been in for about 4 weeks, and it's already looking fabulous with our granthemums and salvias and these gorgeous, my FLOMO, these gorgeous ornamental clovers. So Trifoliums in particular, pannonicum, just stealing the show as far as I can see. There's loads of beautiful things, but these pom-poms, these white pom-poms, really big clover flowers, particularly when, the morning or the evening light catches through them, are absolutely glorious. And I don't know, it's unusual and yet so familiar that I think it's extra special to me. So it's not massively jungly, but Trifolium pannonicum is currently shooting to the top of my wish list because I walk past it basically every day when I'm out, going to the allotment or walking the dog or the baby or both. So that's top of my FLOMO list. What about you, Steve?
Well, it's got to be that Astelia now. I need that in my life. The idea of, because silver foliage as well, that will tolerate shade. I've grown Westland and I've grown Red Devil, and they're smaller plants. And so it has been on my radar for a little while. And now after talking about it again, I can't believe I haven't just been out to find it by now. It needs to, it'll be so at home in our new jungle garden here at the land, because it'll be tough enough to survive the winter here now, because there's lots of places to shelter it. And I just think that's got to be in my garden.
Where was that plant stall, Alan? Does she think she'll have any more?
If you send me the address, I'm going to do a bit of night stalking.
And Alan, what about you, FLOMO-wise?
Well, FLOMO-wise, I've just realised, or Steve has made me realise today, that I have neglected Farfugium. There is a Farfugium that I grow, and I grow it in pots because I can move it around to where I want it to be. And I mean, it's by my front door, so it's in shade, but not overhead shade. And it's a variety called Wavy Gravy, and it's got these sort of kind of silvery grey leaves with this wonderful pink indumentum underneath them. And the leaves, as you would derive from the title of the name of the plant, they are wavy edges, and it almost looks artificial in a way. And I think that Farfugiums are, for people that have got a shady courtyard garden, I mean, I must say they're one of the most ideal plants that you can grow. Okay, they don't probably like too much frost in the winter, but if you've got somewhere where you can sort of shelter them against a sheltering wall or something like that, keep them fairly dry, they will grow for you, even if they become deciduous. So I want to get Aurea maculata and I want to get Variegated, and I'm sure I shall. And if I see any Astelia chathamica on the way, I'll send them your way, Steve.
Thank you. Oh, that would be most appreciated. And same the other way. I'm sure some Astelia will, some of the Farfugium will come your way.
Looking forward.
Talking dirty is just like a really convoluted plant swap.
Yeah.
So often at plant fairs, and we had the best time up at East Ruston at the plant fair a few weeks ago. And it always is an opportunity, particularly when you go way out of your local region, to buy plants from other people. So there's this real busyness before the plant fair opens, swapping or buying and selling plants to each other before the fair really opens. That's very common, I think.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved about being there when my mum was doing her craft stall is I would therefore be at the plant fair also before it opened and getting kind of first dibs, which might be how I ended up with my mate's rate variegated cheese plant, my Monstera, which is still very, very happy, though I made the mistake of leaving it with my mum and she got rather attached. So it's still in my mum's house. I've never, ever got it to this house. And now I've got a small person who would just pull it to pieces anyway. So I can only really have plants that are up high.
Oh no, so that's it. You have to go and visit your own plants.
Yeah. I have visiting rights to my variegated monster. That's all right. It looks wonderful anyway. So thank you for making sure I had that in my life a few years ago, and at least it's still alive, unlike so many things that I've bought at plant fairs. Steve, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you very much for coming along and sharing your Chelsea story and so many of those inspiring Chelsea plants. We have been spoiled. This is quite the plant list.
You're very welcome. Thanks so much for having me, and always lovely to see you both.
And you too. And I just have to say that thank you for emptying my purse.
Always a pleasure, never a chore.
It's like a general talking dirty apology for all the money that we have made you spend by showing you all of these plants and increasing your wish lists. Until we do it again, until next time, happy gardening.
Happy gardening, everybody. Nice to see you, Steve.
But it's not Tradescantia. It is... oh, come on, Steve. I know. I'm looking for a label now. I do know. It's very hardy. We used it in the display at Chelsea last year. Oh, Tinantia. Nice to see you. Happy gardening.
Wow, we managed to finish in time for Alan to go and do his whatever he's got to do. Tour.
A tour. That's the most difficult thing with boys, is they're probably easier than girls in my experience, but you do have to try and stop them from killing themselves quite regularly.
I mean, he is absolutely wonderful. He's hilarious. And yesterday he learned how to say bubble. I was saying, can you say bubble? Bubble. And he's so happy about it. I was like, can you say bubble? Bubble. Absolute joy that I can say bubble. And all of that is absolutely wonderful.